Hey, how are you doing? In today's video, I want to talk to you about the hard truth about becoming a strong man. And listen, I know what you're thinking. You're picturing muscles. You're picturing confidence. You're picturing a guy who's got it all figured out. A man who walks into a room and people respect him immediately. A man who doesn't flinch. A man who knows exactly what to say and when to say it. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today, because I've spent 30 years as a psychologist and Christian counselor. I've sat across from hundreds of men, strong men, successful men. If you're looking for real answers about what strength actually costs, hit that subscribe button. We're about to go deep. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover what the Bible really says about masculine strength. You're going to see the psychology behind why so many strong men are actually the most broken. And you're going to learn exactly what it takes to build a strength that doesn't destroy you from the inside out. Because here's the truth. There's a difference between the strength you perform and the strength you actually possess. And when you can't tell the difference anymore, you're already lost. But to understand how this all started, we got to go back. And on that day, everything seemed perfectly normal. I was sitting in my office. A man walked in, late 50s, tailored suit, firm handshake. You know the type. Successful businessman, owned his own company for 20 years, 3 kids, been married since he was 24. To everyone who knew him, he was the picture of strength. He sat down in that chair and didn't say anything for almost 5 minutes, just stared at his hands. And I waited, because sometimes the strongest men need the most space to break. Finally, he looked up at me, and he said something I'll never forget. He said, "I don't know how to be weak anymore, and I'm terrified of what happens if I try." That moment changed everything for him. But it didn't happen overnight. No, the crack had been growing for years. Decades, really. It started small, a disappointed look from his father when he cried as a boy, a coach who told him that pain was just weakness leaving the body, a culture that whispered that real men don't need help, real men don't struggle, real men fix everything themselves. So he built walls. Stone by stone, year after year. And those walls kept everyone out. His wife, his kids, his friends, even himself. Especially himself. He became the guy you call when you need something done, the guy who never complains, the guy who carries the weight for everyone else. And everyone depended on him so completely that he couldn't afford to fall apart. Because if he did, everything would collapse. But here's what nobody tells you. That kind of strength is a prison, and the bars are made of your own hands. One night, his youngest son came to him. His kid was struggling in school, depressed, pulling away from everything. And his son said to him, "Dad, I don't know how to be happy. I don't know how to be anything but tough." That's when it hit him. He had taught his son that the only way to survive was to become an island. And now his kid was drowning on that island with no life raft in sight. And he couldn't reach him because he'd never learned how to ask for help either. The shame of that moment nearly destroyed him. It wasn't the failure in business that broke him. It wasn't the setbacks. It wasn't the losses. It was the realization that he had spent his entire life building a version of strength that was actually destroying everyone he loved, including himself. And the worst part, he was completely alone with it, because you can't tell anyone that. You can't show that crack. So he just got quieter, got colder, drank a little more, worked a little longer, and watched his marriage become a transaction instead of a relationship. If you've ever felt that kind of isolation, that kind of pressure to be something you're not, leave a comment down below. I read every single one. because you need to know you're not the only one carrying this weight. Now, when I look at the Bible, there's a man who knew exactly what this feels like. His name was Job, and I want you to hear me out on this because Job is not who you think he is. Most people know Job as the guy who suffered, the guy who lost everything. And yes, he did. But that's not actually his story. His story is about a man who built an entire identity around being strong enough to handle anything, being righteous enough to deserve God's protection, being good enough that nothing bad would ever touch him. Job was wealthy. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He had thousands of sheep, camels, oxen. He was the greatest man in all the East. But here's what people miss. Job wasn't just successful because he was smart or hardworking. He was successful because he had constructed a theology of strength that said, if I am good enough, if I am strong enough in my faith, bad things won't happen to me. That was his identity. That was his entire sense of self-worth. He was the man who had figured it out, the man who did everything right, and everyone knew it. Everyone respected him for it. But then everything fell apart. His oxen and donkeys were stolen. His sheep and servants burned up. His camels were taken. His 10 children all passed away in a single day. And then boils covered his entire body. Painful, oozing, relentless boils. And Job sat in the ashes. He couldn't understand it. Because according to his theology, according to his entire understanding of how strength and goodness worked, this wasn't supposed to happen. He had done everything right. He had been strong. He had been righteous. So why was he destroyed? That's when his friends came. And they did what everyone does. They tried to fix it. They said, Job, you must have sinned. You must have done something wrong. That's why this happened. In other words, they said, you weren't actually strong enough. You failed somewhere. And Job couldn't take it, because he was already in the deepest shame of his life. He was already questioning everything he believed about himself and God. And now people he trusted were telling him that it was his fault, that his strength had failed him. So he sat in that shame alone, for weeks, for months, in the dust and the darkness, and he didn't have anyone to talk to. Because the moment you admit you're struggling, the moment you admit you don't understand, people stop respecting you. They stop believing in you. They start looking for reasons why you failed. That's the rock bottom of masculine strength. That's when you realize that everything you built was built on the assumption that you would never break. And when you do, there's nothing left. And here's what I want you to hear. Job was in that darkness for a long time. His friends kept talking. They kept trying to explain it. They kept trying to make sense of it. And Job just sat there, completely undone. But then something shifted. And this is the part that changes everything. Job didn't get fixed by finding an explanation. He didn't get fixed by proving he was righteous after all. He got fixed by something much simpler and much harder. He got fixed by finally being honest about how broken he was. Listen, in my 30 years of practice, I've learned something that most people never figure out. Real strength doesn't come from never breaking. Real strength comes from what you do after you break. The day Job stopped trying to prove his righteousness and just admitted he was destroyed, something inside him shifted. He said, I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. That's not weakness. That's the strongest moment in his entire story, because that's when he stopped fighting against reality. That's when he stopped performing strength and started being honest about his condition. And the moment he did that, everything changed. Not because God rewarded him with stuff, not because his circumstances got fixed immediately, but because he became real again. He became himself again. not the version he had constructed, the actual man underneath. And here's what I want you to understand. That's the hard truth about becoming a strong man. You can't actually become strong by building walls. You become strong by learning how to be vulnerable without disappearing. You become strong by being honest about what you can't handle. You become strong by asking for help when you're drowning. I know that sounds backwards. I know that goes against everything the world has taught you, but I've watched it happen 100 times in my office, and I've lived it in my own life. When I was a younger man, I thought strength meant having all the answers, thought it meant never showing doubt, thought it meant carrying everyone else's burden while barely standing myself. And you know what happened? I became a ghost. I was there in body, but nobody really knew me. My kids didn't know their real father. My wife was married to a performance, not a person. It wasn't until I nearly lost everything that I realized the strength I was performing was actually my greatest weakness. So here's what I'm going to tell you, and I want you to really hear this. Real strength starts with this one thing. You got to tell the truth. Not to everyone, not all at once, but to someone. You got to find one person. Maybe it's a counselor, maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's a close friend, and you got to say the words you've never said out loud. I'm struggling. I don't have this figured out. I'm scared. I'm lonely. I'm not who everyone thinks I am. And that's it. That's where it starts. Because the moment you say it out loud, it loses its power over you. The shame becomes smaller. The isolation starts to crack. And you start to become real again. The second thing is this. You gotta forgive yourself for not being perfect. For not having it all figured out. For being human. I watch men carry the weight of impossible standards their entire lives. Standards they set for themselves. Standards they inherited from their fathers. Standards they got from a culture that told them that weakness is a character flaw. But you're not weak for needing help. You're not weak for doubting. You're not weak for being afraid. That's not weakness. That's honesty. And honesty is the ground that real strength is built on. The third thing, and this is crucial, you gotta learn to be present with your people again. Not as the strong one who's got it all figured out, but as a real person. With struggles, with doubts, with fears. My youngest grandchild is 7 years old. And last year he asked me why I cry sometimes when I talk about hard things. And I told him the truth. I said, because I care about people, and sometimes that hurts, and that's okay. You know what he said? He said, good, because Dad doesn't cry, and I never know what he's feeling. I don't know if he even loves me. That broke my heart, because that's what happens when you spend your whole life performing strength. Your kids don't know you, and they learn that the way to love is to become an island, to never need, to never break. I'm 58 years old now, been married 40 years, raised 7 kids, been a counselor for 30, and the strongest thing I ever did was admit I didn't have all the answers, that I was scared, that I needed help, that I needed my wife, that I needed my faith, that I needed other people. And you know what? That didn't make me weak. It made me free. See, there's a freedom that comes when you stop performing, when you stop trying to convince everyone you've got it figured out, when you stop carrying the weight of impossible expectations. That freedom is what real strength looks like. It looks like a man who can admit he's wrong, a man who can apologize to his kids, a man who can tell his wife, I'm scared and I need your help, a man who can reach out when he's drowning instead of drowning in silence. It looks like a man who's not trying to prove anything anymore, because he's finally figured out that the only person he was ever trying to prove something to was himself. So here's what I want you to do, starting today. Not tomorrow. Today. First, find one person. That's it. One person who you're gonna start being real with. And this week, you're going to tell them one truth you've never said out loud, one thing that's been weighing on you, one thing you've been carrying alone. Second, you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to forgive yourself for all the times you couldn't be what everyone wanted, for all the times you fell short, for all the ways you're human. And you're going to say it out loud. I forgive you. You did the best you could. Third, you're going to pick one person you love, your kid, your wife, your closest friend, and you're going to sit down with them and you're going to be present, not as the guy who's got it all figured out, just as a person who cares about them. And you're going to listen, really listen, to who they are and what they're carrying, because that's where real strength lives, in presence, in honesty, in the willingness to be broken with another human being. I started this video talking about a man who thought strength meant never showing weakness, a man who built walls so thick that nobody could reach him. And you know what happened? He became the loneliest strong man I've ever met. But then he chose something different. He chose to be real. He chose to ask for help. He chose to let people see him. And today, he's the strongest man I know. Not because he stopped struggling, but because he stopped pretending he wasn't. That's the hard truth about becoming a strong man. It's not about being tougher. It's about being more honest. It's not about carrying more. It's about sharing the load. It's not about never breaking. It's about breaking in front of people who love you and letting them help put the pieces back together. If you've ever struggled with feeling like you had to be the strong one, if you've ever felt the weight of impossible expectations, if you've ever been lonely, even in a crowded room, I want you to like this video. And I want you to subscribe because we're going to talk about more of this stuff. And I want you to comment down below and tell me, what's one truth about yourself that you've been afraid to say out loud? I read every single comment and I promise you, you're not alone in this. Hey, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.